TCS hit the $100 billion mark, right, in market cap. Was that, what do these benchmarks, what do these milestones signify in the business cycle of any company? Does it signify a top or does it signify a new phase?
By the way, there's a big difference between the growth rate of TCS and the growth rate of even Apple.
Yeah.
And forget about Google and Amazon, which are also nearly at same market caps of not same as TCS, same as Apple, which is 700-800 billion. Unfortunately, Indian companies are growing at 6-8%, whereas Apple is growing at 14-15, and Google at 25, and Amazon at 40-50. So they will all hit trillion before TCS goes to 105, according to me.
Yeah, but the point is, what does it signify, sir, for where they are in the business cycle? Does it signify a top because valuations are getting so stretched, so ballooned, or does it signify that there's?
But it doesn't signify that. It just signifies that even 100 that way is not enough for us to feel satisfied, because there are going to be in a few years maybe $3 or $4 trillion companies. So that way I don't think that.
But it's a new phase of capitalism. Last time he said that. I mean, this is a new phase of capitalism where capital is not required only.
Yeah.
So underlying in capitalism, basically, it is a more efficient use of capital. But here, the situation is that there is no capital required for all the FANG companies, and they are literally heading trillions. So, in fact, in my mind, it is coming that still there is no inflation. US economy is on the full employment.
Yeah.
I think so. The full employment, no inflation, interest rate still sub 3. Germany at 1%, Japan at 0.07%.
Yeah.
What does it mean in terms of continued bull run in the equities worldwide?
Yeah.
And this is a mecca of equities.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these things are yet to be answered, because when you take a very long, see, when your discount rate is very low and you don't see the franchise getting in trouble. In fact, it is becoming bigger. So you have growth, you have low discount rate, and you have unchallenged franchise. So can it be 2 trillion? Can it be 3 trillion? We don't know. It's a new phase of capitalism.
Yeah, no, but this easy capital phase might come to an end if rates start going up faster than expected, and that's the point, and that's a key concern for the markets, right? Because the markets have extended themselves on this easy money regime.
I don't think they've extended themselves. If you look at US companies, they trade between 15 and 20, 25 multiples, and they grow 20, 30%. I think the only thing which is scary is only that for 100 and so many months, which is like 9 years, the market has not had the economy has not had a recession from 2009. So these big picture always remind you, you should never say this time it's different. But if you ignore that for a minute, then it might be a little bit different.
It's different this time.
I'm saying that it might be a little bit different. It's very bullish.
Yeah,
No, but so this is the bull market which is being approached with a lot of caution. Like, people are being skeptical about this bull move, right? Especially now, even more so. And I think that's the important part. So 2017 was a great year for equities, right? Everybody made money. That's why his views right now become even more important. What he thinks about interest rates, what does he think about oil, his outlook on inflation.
He's not going to talk on all these things.
But people will ask him questions.
Then they're going to waste a question, because he'll say, you have never gone wrong in betting on US. Then I did it last time and I did it.
That trade always remains.
Nothing is going to change.
Bullish trade on US by him, and bullish trade on India by Samir and me. So I think that goes on, but I think I think people will be looking for new thought process to look at this market. I mean, how far it can go, what could be the new sources of risk, because risk is a way to find you.
Exactly.
And suddenly, can something change? Can something change? Because he's the guy who said, if the interest rates are low, then P multiple. I mean, if
you can justify valuation.
Yeah, you can justify valuation. Now at this valuation, does he have some other thing to say?
He has, because he uses tax rate. So he says that if government is my partner, and previously government was keeping 35, and I was getting 65, now government will get 21, and I will get 79. Therefore 79 by 65, first give me that re-rating, and then, because I heard it before, so because that's a good one, and he can reuse it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, but my only question then is that what is he likely to say this time around that can perhaps characterize the market environment we are in? So the risks out there are well defined, but they're not something that are playing on the market's mind.
I can tell you on
Even
his
at this
behalf,
juncture.
he's going to say if you're long term, it's a great market. and,
He actually said that in my interview as well. last time.
see, I already know.
See, the fact is, I'm not saying he's not going to be
The
repetitive.
idea
Samir.
of this conference or this is not to get a new point. It is to be reminded of the old points.
So well said. So well said. Because I think there is a high premium to the
Reinforcement.
to the reinforcement and the repeating of those words of wisdom and those adages that he follows in the market.
And to see that how by doing it consistently, not only wealth he has created, but respect he has created. So the other people who are maybe new or old who've forgotten, it's more as a reminder for them that this is the path. No need to find new formulas every day.
Mr. Agarwal, do you think that he should be talking about emerging markets right now, the opportunities there?
I
don't
think
he doesn't.
No.
his scale, in fact, his scale is becoming so big, emerging market is becoming more and more irrelevant. He's old now, and he'll find very difficult to travel to the countries where he would like to invest, say like India. He's very excited. His very able deputy, Mr. Jan, is from India, and he would love to host him and call him to show the companies, but where the companies of significant size. But I think one opportunity in India, I think you can ask him also, but I think opening up insurance sector where we have gone up to 49%, but if we anytime give majority, I think they will come, maybe they'll buy.
No, he
everything.
spoke about it as well. Last time in my interview, he said that that's the only thing that's stopping them.
But he will want only 100%. He
No,
won't
no,
even-
no, no, anything above 49.
51%.
above 50,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. He'll
So
be
we,
fine with that.
we stopped at 49, and that's something to do with the
This is
Bajaj.
what we do everything that we can do to stop people.
No, but my point is, what do you think he would say tomorrow with regards to this whole debate on ETFs versus mutual funds? Do you think his stance will change at all on that front?
Unfortunately, no. And unfortunately for the investors in India who will take it seriously and buy ETFs. Because in India, mutual funds do quite well.
Yeah, exactly. Mr.
Yeah.
Agarwal,
Yeah, so
you
yeah.
believe in somebody who doesn't believe in your business. I mean, the AMC business.
No, no, no. As you said, Indians still don't believe in ETF, so we have few more years before it. See, Buffett's best quote, one of the best quote, apart from his rule number 1 and rule number 2, is that what wise people do in the beginning, fools do at the end. Okay. So Americans have already got onto ETF. Almost 30-40% of the market is a ETF. As we grow, the pace at which we are growing, clearly ETF will come at some point of time in maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But I don't think ETF as a concept is such a huge concept. Last year, John Bogle himself was there, and he said, he acknowledged in the crowd that he has contributed to the investing more than anybody, including him.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think that we should not use index funds and ETFs interchangeably. Because I think index funds have done a good job, ETFs have done a bad job, and they have made the index concept worse because of the trading that is done in ETFs. Because people who buy ETFs think that they are market timers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research on this that investors in ETFs lose money. Not because they lost it while they were invested, but because they were trying to market time it.
Yeah. So
Relative
because the
to-
cost is low, right?
And
It's getting-
they buy it with that concept that I can go in and out and there's no cost. But there's a cost of being out of the market or coming in at a bad time and things like that.
That just reminds me, you are also somebody who does a lot of in and out in the markets. He is of course a long-term investor. What is the influence he has on your
I
own
am very long term on my shorts and my longs. On my
That's
shorts,
amazing.
I have some shorts which have been around for 3-4 years.
Okay, but are you saying that you don't trade in the market?
No, I only change my net by adding, subtracting to the same names. But mostly I am in the same names.
in
So
fact,
what-
he's a specialist in finding companies which are racing to zero. So from 100 he starts and he stays short right till it goes to zero.
And I add in between. Because if it goes to 80, that means my weight comes down. So I add.
Keep hammering more.
No, but last couple of questions before we wrap up. Which one philosophy of his has had the most impact on your own style of investing?
For me, it has been that first believe in equities. I think that itself is so important. Reason for that is that when the markets fall, you should broadly know that in the end, because markets do well, it's better for you either to stay or maybe to add a little. If you accept the concept of equity, 50-60% of your problems are solved.
Same question to you, Mr. Agarwal. Which one philosophy of his has had the maximum influence on your own investment style?
I think when I started off, two things. One is that don't have too many babies. You know, I had 200 stocks in 10 crore portfolio. So I brought it down to 15 or 17, and that I have stayed on to. That don't have, because your circle of competence is not across. You know very few companies well, even 15, 17 companies are too many for a guy. So having few companies in the portfolio, that has been paramount in my understanding of investing. That was one. Second is that don't bother about the markets. You know, I mean, don't time the market. Nobody can predict the market. And I have seen he himself cannot predict the market. In 2008, on the eve of collapse.
But that's called timing the market, because at the bottom he felt that it was going up, so he bought all these things. That is timing the market.
But no, and that is true.
He should have said, it doesn't matter to me. If the market is down 60%, I don't know what it can do tomorrow.
Yeah.
But he felt that it's going up, so it was timing the
No,
market.
and even in his purchase of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, when people were writing off the business completely at $10, he picked it up.
But fundamentally, you asked me the question whether what did you learn.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, I don't bother too much about the markets. That has been one of the kind of learnings for me. Later on, you know, even the power of price. I mean, that you got to buy high quality companies, but you know, purchase price decides your rate of return. So you can't buy anything at any price. So that is also kind of, so a lot of things over a period of time has been added, and finally we came to our QGLP. It's all given by him. You know?
And looking at the recent jewelry stocks in India, we should have learned one more thing. If you don't know jewelry, know your jeweler.
That is true.
And,
That is
and
true.
it perfectly fits with that.
Exactly.
Tatas, you know,
what Titan is doing
in Indian jewelry market, the kind of guys the jewelry trade is made up of.
Yeah.
I think better you know your jeweler.
Yeah, and be with the organized players there. My only thing is, okay, reverse that question. If you guys were given a chance to ask a question tomorrow, right, what would you ask Mr. Bhatt?
I want to ask him that I don't believe that he believes in concentration. What he was saying that we own 17 companies, because he owns a lot of unlisted companies. And I want to genuinely ask him that, was that only because at one stage, when you were very small, you did that to try and sort of accelerate faster or do something faster, because he's never really done it after that in any significant way.
I would have asked, when he says that don't time the market, nobody can predict the market, why he himself is sitting on say 135, 150 billion dollars of cash for so many years and not able to deploy for more than a percentage.
But he says price.
But at the same time he said, I would advise other people to buy ETFs. He could have bought at least ETF till he finds the next idea. So that he could have got the equity exposure, and instead of getting pain of 1% return, he could have got 10, 15, 20% return, and whenever he gets that $100 billion idea, he could have just moved.
Yeah.
That ETF is so liquid, if he puts in $100 billion or takes out $100 billion, it doesn't make a difference. You know, so I still find it very difficult. For 10 years, he's been sitting on an increasing pile of cash, and now this year I think it will cross $150 billion. So that still remains in my mind why he is doing that. Is he timing the market?
Could be.
Could be, I agree.
Could be. So, here's the thing. I asked him last year that do you think that investing in asset management companies in emerging markets makes sense, because they still have a lot of inefficiency to take advantage of while generating their returns, and he just said no. I'm not going to invest in AMCs either in the US or outside. So, I mean, that just says it, that it's a complete no as far as active fund management goes. And I think that's a very good point, Mr. Agarwal, that you've made. What about passive management? Why he hasn't invested in ETFs as yet is going to be critical. Closing thoughts then. We are here, and I've really been struggling to have this conversation over the last half an hour. What do you hope to take away from this experience this time?
that I'm very happy to see Ramdev here. I can't meet Warren Buffett, but I've met him here instead.
Mr. Agarwal.
I am so happy to have met Samir here, and we kind of shared this entire thing because we go long back. I mean, we both made career in stock market. I started servicing him in Alliance, so it was lot of. I mean, when you look back 25 years, that's the evolution of the markets in India, and going forward. I mean, when I come here, I get so excited, and you get to meet. I mean, you'll get to see so many discussions on the cutting edge technology. I mean, in investing, technology looks to be invisible, but there is technology. So you'll see, we'll get into those discussions with our friends, and you'll be meeting a lot of people. You met Mr. Gabeli, isn't it?
I did meet him. I did interview him.
We'll be meeting a lot of guys, and I think the best thing is go up tomorrow. Let's see where the discussion goes up to.
I'll tell you what I'm glad about. I'm glad about getting the two of you in the same frame in Omaha. So that's a treat for our viewers. Thanks very much, both of you, for joining us in this exclusive chat. See you then tomorrow.